Our next speaker is Peter Whelan. Peter is a long-term shooter. Previously has been president of the Liberal Democratic Party. He's currently president of New South Wales Division of the Shooters Union. Thank you, Peter.
No. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and senators. Thank you, David. You got a licence?
Yeah.
Okay, when I was asked, I should put these down, I don't want to look too aggressive. Thank you. When I was asked to give a talk on guns, I thought, oh, this is easy. I've been giving talks on guns since the early 2000s to Rotary clubs, Lions clubs, school groups, anyone who would listen. It was quite a simple project to get a permit to display from the Firearms Registry because I have prohibited weapons. I have semi-automatic shotguns and rifles because I'm a farmer, shoot clay targets, so went through all the paperwork to get my lovely firearms. This time, however, a couple of weeks ago when I phoned the Firearms Registry and said, oh, I want to get a permit to display a couple of my firearms so I can explain to people what it's all about. After 2 or 3 people checking what was going on, they said, no, that permit is now no longer available. I used to pay $50 and it was all right. They said, no, that permit to display is now only available to RSL clubs. So we're getting more and more restrictions. So for those, in my previous talks, when I was able to show the firearms are just pieces of metal, pieces of steel, plastic, wood. So they're inanimate objects. And so that the gun control people keep telling me that I don't feel powerful unless I've got some weapon in my hand, I thought I'd bring along these. So that's, but imagine if I was coming to give a talk on baseball or on golf and I wasn't allowed to bring along the very piece of equipment that I wanted to talk about. That's how restrictive it is. Imagine if I was going to have a talk on smoking and the restrictions around smoking, and I couldn't show you cigars. That's how over-regulated the sport is. I've passed around, if you can just keep circulating, what I did bring in was some ammunition in various forms, so you can have you open a little plastic container and have a play. And by the time it's circulated around, I should be at the end of my talk, if it's another 12 minutes. So the theme of my talks that I'd given to Rotary clubs before, as I said, those community groups, they were typical businessmen and women, fairly intelligent people involved in helping the community, curing cancer or preventing heart attacks. And their information on guns came from TV, mainstream media, the newspapers. And as David said, what you see on TV and the cop shows isn't necessarily the truth. And I'd like to compare the gun control people, the anti-gun, the gun haters, really to the anti-vaccination people. You talk to them about vaccination. Oh, no, I saw something on YouTube. I saw something from America. Oh, vaccinations could be dangerous. So I put them in the same category. Gun control people, anti-gun people, anti-vaccination people. So the theme of my talk to Rotary, and I'll bring this to the point now, is that what good could we do in our community with $1 billion? And that gets the Rotary clubs, the charities, oh, we could do lots of good things in the community. So I emphasise that certainly the gun bans, the gun crushing, all the licensing and registration has not done anything to reduce gun crime. So if you ever come across any of these people in the street or any of you are members of those clubs or know anybody and they come up to you and ask you for money, what I do is say, what would you do with $1 billion? Shut down the firearms registries, as the long arms registries, as they've done in New Zealand and in Canada. In Switzerland, they don't have registration of long arms. Put that money to some good in the community. So the restrictions that came about after 1996 and John Howard's gun bans and gun control laws, to my way of thinking, was the start of the end of personal responsibility. If you could blame an inanimate object for something, then you could say, oh, I slipped down the stairs at a building, I'm not responsible, I'll sue the building owner. So you get all this sort of, no wonder insurance policies are so expensive. It was the end of personal responsibility. So we had things like John Howard saying guns cause suicides, and Professor Simon Chapman at Public Health at Sydney Uni saying guns cause murder. And blame something else. Blame something else. You see on the TV, oh, a car went out of control and killed some people. And even in the Burke Street murders, the media referred to that as a rogue vehicle. For goodness sake, was the guy driving it? So finish personal responsibility. Helpless victim syndrome is what I refer to it at. You're no longer responsible for your own actions. You're a helpless victim of someone else's, or blaming an inanimate object. Now, the other day was a march for science, and I'd like to get a bit scientific or to criticise the gun control advocates for being totally unscientific. They've based all their arguments on emotions. So it's a pity that the March for Science, they weren't holding up things saying get rid of the firearms registry, get rid of gun laws. That would have been quite scientific. They've used things like rash generalisations. Criminals have guns, therefore those who have guns must be criminals. You know, it's not logical, it doesn't make sense. And also in any scientific experiment, you need a control group to monitor whether what you've done has any influence. And I like to refer to New Zealand and Canada, as James has done. They didn't introduce gun laws like we have. You can still freely own semi-automatic shotguns and rifles in New Zealand and Canada. And they haven't had a surge in crime. So you can look at that as a control group and say, right, our scientific study shows that the Australian experiment has failed. Sorry. The failure to consider other variables in the community. This, once again, is a scientific analysis of what's happened in Australian society. The gun control advocates, the anti-gun crowd, say or claim that the only thing that's happened in Australia since 1996 has been gun bans, whereas we know that the society is not a static situation, it's dynamic. The result in increase in crime, which we saw after 1996, the community reacted. At every election, the politicians said, oh, we'll put on more police to tackle crime. The shopping malls put on security guards. There's now twice the number of private security guards as police. Of course, private security guards happen to carry handguns, a lot of them. So we can say that they've reacted to the increase in crime by recruiting more security guards with guns. There's lots of other variables as well too. Things like CCTVs on every street corner in our shopping centres, and more jails being built. The jails are now overcrowded, so putting more criminals away in jails certainly reduces the crime rate. You don't get the recidivist activity. So these things have helped reduce crime. Even large screen TVs. People are staying home. They're not out in crowds being exposed to a criminal activity. Lots of these things have happened. Even better medical and paramedical support. And even the fact that now more people have mobile phones. So people who are attacked, who become victims of crime, no longer die. Well, there's less chance of them dying. They're now saved rather than becoming a murder statistic. So when the anti-gun people look, they selectively pick statistics out and prove that the gun laws have worked, but ignore all the other factors. So anyone who manipulates statistics, not only unscientific, but they're liars. So I'd like to be also a bit illogical, or extending the argument about the firearms licensing and registration regime. If it really was to make Australia a safer place, and John Howard will tell anyone he talks to that his gun laws made Australia a safer place, then the more licensed firearms owners in the community, the better. The more registered guns there are, the better, because that's making us a safer place, because these are the gun laws. And the best and safest way will be when everyone who's eligible has a firearms licence and has as many registered firearms as you can afford to buy. And the best way of achieving that is to join the Shooters Union or join the Sporting Shooters Association and get with the program. Now, been passing around, I don't know where it's up to. Have everyone seen this, the ammunition? Yeah. Keep passing that around. Oh, sure. Because in that little, if you can hold up the little plastic jar, I'll get back up on my podium again. How are we going for time?
3 minutes.
3 minutes. Okay. Oh. In the little, who's holding the plastic jar? Okay. Now what colour are the little pellets in there?
Yellow and green.
Yellow and green. The yellow ones are prohibited ammunition. Totally banned. And they seize them at customs coming through, because they can be used in toy guns that look like real guns. And James mentioned this appearance law. It's already applied to toy guns used to play airsoft games. This I've been able to get away with so far. I won't shoot it into the crowd, but so all it needs is a police commissioner to decide that that looks like a real handgun, and I'd be gone. 15 years in jail, and whoever was holding the yellow ones, I'm sorry, you'd be joining me in prison. By the way, the green ones, which are indistinguishable if you hold them up. Where are they? The green ones are actually breath fresheners. So you can tell the difference, obviously, what's prohibited ammunition and what's breath fresheners. So I'd like to finish there, and I hope I've taken a lighter approach to the topic, and it is really ridiculous where the country has gone to. But thank you for listening.